Welcome, everybody, to the Oklahoma Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew. As always, we have your co-host, Matt and Vitor, here as well. This week, we are going to be continuing our position preview series, jumping off with the wide receivers. First up, we are going to head off to the top of the depth chart, which is going to be Corey Davis, your new ex-receiver signed in free agency this season. Matt is going to take him on. We're just going to jump right into the breakdowns. We got a lot of receivers to talk about, so the sooner we get going, the better, guys. Matt, take it away.
Hey. All right, so a lot of talk has been going on with Mims and Moore. They're getting all the attention in the wide receiver room. But in the end, there's still question marks, right? All we have with them is projection. With Davis, we sort of know what we're getting. With Davis, we now have, a more reliable and steady wide receiver. One of the most reliable and steady guys that we could probably say we've had in a very long time. And Davis is very good at a lot of things, but also a master of none. In the end, this probably puts a cap on his production. I mean, he's never broken 1,000 yards. He's never gotten more than 5 receiving touchdowns in a season. These numbers aren't going to jump off the page as impressive. What we get in Davis is a well-rounded weapon, though, and he can be used a lot of different ways. We can line him up as the X, Y, or Z receiver. We can even line him up as a tight end. He's a movable piece, and he's very valuable to a creative mind like LaFleur. His biggest strengths are his dependable hands, his route running, and he does very well getting DBs to bite where he wants them to bite, and he gains leverage, and he knows how to use it too. And he uses his hands, his feet, and his body in unison to make these routes very smooth and fluid. His hands are big and strong, as well, to make all these great contested catches. You can see him lining up and going over the middle without any fear and making snatches in midair with heavy coverage on him. He has a contested catch percentage of around 60%. This puts him around the top 5 in the league in this category. That's extremely, extremely impressive. And I think that's going to come in handy with a rookie quarterback who's probably not going to be, he's going to be throwing into tighter windows. So these contested catches are something that we're going to need to come down with. And Davis is a champion in this realm. I mentioned earlier that he could even be lined up as a tight end. This wouldn't happen if coaches didn't trust his strength and ability as a blocker. He routinely uses good technique to take out safeties and corners in run support. He's even been known to take out a defensive end from here and there. Of course, Davis's upside in our offense is through the roof. Quarterbacks tend to lean on guys that are most dependable. And there are very few receivers out there that are as dependable as Davis. What say you guys?
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely when you were looking at free agency this season, the head guy was Kenny Golladay, and he signed for a lot more money than Davis did to go play in the same stadium, funny enough. But when you factor in age, when you factor in fit in the offense, what the Jets were looking for specifically, I think he's perfect fit. I think he's is he the most amazing number 1 X receiver in the NFL? No, but he's really, really good, and he's really consistent and really solid and really good at what the Jets are going to ask him to do. And that's deep over routes, that's deep post routes, that's, play down the boundary and block your ass off in the run game. And, he fits all of that perfectly.
He's not going to amaze you with his speed either, but that's not exactly his strength. Like he'll work you. He'll take these DBs and put them in a mixer, and he'll wind up getting open somehow. He's not going to amaze you with his speed, though.
Nah, he's a great route runner for his size, and that's a plus for him. But there are 2 things that he has proven he's good at that the Jets will need him to continue to be good this year. Catching passes over the middle on play action passes, right? Some play action that is on first downs to get Zach Wilson going early in the game. Corey Davis will be the target of this plays. And he needs to be a key blocker and continue to be a great blocker, as Matt pointed out. I could see the Jets running some sweeps, some leads with Corey Davis cracking on defensive ends and letting, Mekhi Becton pull out, George Fant pull out. So we don't have 2 great tight ends right now. I have Chris Herndon, who, in the end, question mark on him, and Tyler Croft, who isn't great either. So I could see the Jets moving him inside a bit, utilizing him to down block defensive ends. He could be a guy that the Jets may move around in the formation to fit what they're doing on each play.
LaFleur was probably licking his chops, thinking about what he could do with Davis.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. It made total sense when they signed him as a fit in the offense. I think the other thing is that he's young and that he has room to grow as well. This is a free agent that, is hitting the end of his rookie contract and just hitting free agency. I'm pretty sure he's only 26. I mean, this is a guy that can grow with your offense. This isn't, veteran free agent that's going to come in and play 2 years and be gone, which, speaking of a quick transitions, as it happened this morning, quick aside, Julio Jones replaced Corey Davis today with the trade from the Falcons to the Titans. And before we get into it, we'll get into this more at the end. Corey Davis is a guy that can grow with the team. Julio Jones would be really, really good, but in 2 years, he's going to be gone.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, yeah, we've got a piece that he's only 26 right now, and we can keep him for a while and be very happy.
And he was on pace for 1K last year. He only played 14 games. He was on pace to get 1K yards last year. I think he'll be a 1,000 receiver this year with the Jets.
Yeah, I agree. From a veteran to a second-year player, that is going to take us into Denzel Mims, who I'm going to cover. Denzel Mims has been one of my favorite players for a long time, going back to when he was even a prospect. He was one of my red stars, which is, guys that you just absolutely want to bang on the table and fall in love with. That was Denzel Mims in the receiving group for me. I actually had him in the first round of my final mock that year. I had him going to the Minnesota Vikings. That, granted, Justin Jefferson was off the board, but that's a separate argument. But no, I've always been a huge Mims fan. I love what he can do at the catch point. I love how he's basically never covered. And if he's on the boundary, just put it within a country mile and he's going to find a way to come down with it. I love his explosiveness, which I think is really underrated. And to highlight that point, I want to make a comparison and, a pretty poignant comparison, actually. I want to compare the combines of Denzel Mims and Julio Jones because they're scarily similar. Like really, really down to the number. Sometimes they're scarily similar. So I'm going to read off these numbers. The first numbers I'm going to read off are going to be Julio's. The second ones are going to be Denzel's. In terms of 40, Julio had a 4.34. Denzel had a 4.38. In terms of 10-yard split, Julio had a 1.50. Denzel had a 1.54. In terms of bench press, Julio had 17 reps. Denzel had 16 reps. In terms of vertical leap, they both jumped 38.5 inches. In terms of broad jump, Julio was at 135. Denzel was at 131. In terms of three cone, Julio was at 6.66. Denzel Mims was at 6.66. After that, there's a couple of drills that Denzel didn't participate in, but those are dang near identical combine performances from Julio Jones and Denzel Mims. Granted, Julio Jones had about 15 pounds on him in terms of weight, which is why he's the physical freak that he is. But let's not forget the athlete that Denzel Mims is too. This is a full-blown athlete at receiver with size, with speed, with leaping ability, with agility. A 6.66 three cone is really, really good. And I think people don't think Denzel Mims is that good of a route runner or that he can get in and out of breaks, but he really can. And I think he is going to really, really flourish in this coming offense with Zach Wilson as his quarterback, especially on back shoulders, because Zach Wilson has made a living off you've seen it every time you watch Zach Wilson's tape. It's the play action from the pistol stretch, and I'm going to throw this to Dax Milne down the boundary, and he's going to adjust back shoulder. Just replace Dax Milne with Denzel Mims and replace BYU with New York. It's going to be the same stuff. And I can't wait to see it happen because I think it couldn't have been a better match between quarterback and receiver for Zach Wilson to go into, on top of Corey Davis, who fits that mold too. But young guys that Zach Wilson can grow with and have chemistry with for the future, I think Denzel Mims is the name to watch that is not getting talked about enough.
I agree with everything you said, Andrew, about the back shoulders and the boundary. But when I studied Denzel Mims this offseason, I felt like he could run his routes faster. I don't know if you saw the same.
Yep.
But I was like, just run it full speed. Some of the times I think he lacked some sense of urgency. And I do think this coaching staff will work with him. You know, Miles Austin, everyone says he's a good wide receiver coach. So I'm looking for Denzel. You know, I think he'll blossom into a number one wide receiver in this league. I see a lot of Kenny Galladay in him. I see some Julio. You know, I could see what you're talking about from an athletic standpoint. I would like to see full speed running routes, new releases. He only speed releases. Like when you see the corner, you just go to the outside. It's like he trusts his wingspan and his athleticism so much that he's just like, hey, I'm going to run with this guy and get the ball, you know, but he needs to stack more the defensive backs. And those are some skills that Corey Davis has in his game.
Right.
You know, so Davis is the guy that can come to Denzel and say, hey, Denzel, that's how I do this. That's how I run a 9 route. That's how I stack DB. This is a release that I use that helps me getting open. I feel like Mims in the back half of the season may be Zach Wilson's best friend already.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I agree. And I couldn't agree more. I saw the same exact thing. Nothing in his tape on last year says that he ran a 4.38. I saw a receiver that struggled mightily to get separation on 9 rounds. And he had to rely on those back shoulders and contested catches on the perimeter. I didn't see a guy that was running his, and maybe it was injuries. Maybe that.
This is true.
Also,
we got to factor that in.
We have to factor that in.
That was a leg injury too. So if you want to talk about explosion, a leg injury is certainly going to factor into that.
But you definitely saw his potential.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to discount his ability as a blocker either. Just like Davis.
Oh no.
He's also a very physical blocker, and he does very well in his assignments. And between the two of them, you can just have them trade off, like on wide receiver screens, and just have each other blocking. It's I like their ability outside of just being receivers.
Yeah, I do too. I think I agree with what you guys are saying, that he definitely needed to do things a little bit faster. And I think this is a habit that he got from college, because the Baylor offense, and it's partly why I think he'll work so well with Zach Wilson, is the Baylor offense was basically just built around him releasing down the boundary. And it would be, if the DB's stacking, then we're going to throw back shoulder. If he slides into trail, then accelerate at the top of the route and we'll throw it out ahead of you. You will throw screens off of it. And every now and again, they would run a bubble slant, and Denzel would come in on the slant, and he would show off this really, really pretty dead leg release, where it looks just like that same outside release you guys are talking about, where he's just get outside, trust my wingspan, basically like swim move to the outside and get vertical. And he puts his outside leg down on a dead leg and cuts back inside off of it, and got like 5 yards of separation every time he did it. So I know that he can, but he just needs to do it more, and he needs to get more refined. And especially with receivers, it's all about getting to your spot as soon as you can. And that's definitely where he needs to work. But I think he really will. Like I said, I think he's going to flourish. I'm really excited for him.
Hope he stays healthy.
True. That's definitely true. All right. Well, that's going to take us to the next guy on the list. That's going to be Jameson Crowder. Matt, take it away.
Sure. So speaking of dependable receivers, just like Davis, let's talk about Crowder. So there has been a lot of talk about Crowder eventually being cut to make room for getting more snaps. And I couldn't be more wholeheartedly against doing that. Like I said before with Moore and Mims, they're all projections at this point. We didn't see enough from Mims. We haven't seen anything from Moore at this level. They aren't proven NFL talent. Crowder is a tried and true QB safety net. Crowder knows his way around NFL coverages. You can see it all the time with Sam Darnold last year, how he would break off routes or alter his routes just based off of what the defenses were offering him. And he also has a great understanding of where his teammates are on the field. And based off of that, he has an understanding of where the soft spots are going to be in these coverages. And he's able to just find them each time. And you can always see Sam always trying to find Crowder on the field. Where's Crowder? Where's Crowder? Nothing's open everywhere else. Where's Crowder? Where's Crowder? Crowder was his safety net. And this is the kind of receiver that you want on this team right now. All right. Crowder is out of OTAs, of course, because they're trying to figure out his contract. JD wants to keep him. He would have traded him earlier in the season if he didn't want to keep him. And he just doesn't want to pay that price tag right now. And I understand that. I mean, he's maybe the third or fourth wide receiver on this depth chart. And that price tag is pretty hefty. So, and you won't be getting that on the open market either. So it makes sense. Bring him in at a cheaper price. But what he offers this team right now and what he offers Zach Wilson is pretty invaluable. To have that kind of reliability in a receiver, somebody that is always working back to that quarterback, working to be his safety net and working to be his go-to guy. And he's got sneaky ability too. I mean, he's short. He's not going to be the guy that's high pointing over everybody, over 6-foot cornerbacks, but he's got sneaky speed. He's got great anticipation for coverages. He knows how to flourish. And I think that LaFleur will have fun trying to use him in addition to all these other great talented wide receivers.
Yeah, it's not also like the Jets are in a hurry to cut him. The Jets could keep Crowder, let him work with Zach early in the season. The Jets don't know what Denzel Mims, what Elijah Moore are for sure. But if both of these guys play fantastic, they show you they need all the reps, you can trade Jameson Crowder for a contender, close to the trade deadline. And you can get something from Crowder. You don't need to do it now. Let Crowder work with Zach. Let him go to training camp, restructure his deal if he's willing to, and then you just see how the season goes. If the Jets can easily just replace him with Elijah Moore and Denzel Mims' production on the outside, you do it. You don't need to do it right now.
Absolutely, yeah. There's absolutely no rush at all. It makes no sense. I know people love Moore, the Moore pick, but there's really no reason right now to jump to any conclusions that he's the next Tyreek Hill. All right, we can make some great comparisons for him and love his ability from his tape in college, but we need to see so much more before we can gain enough confidence that we can be like, okay, maybe we can move on to Crowder.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we have to see Elijah Moore in more than just OTAs before we can come to any sort of conclusion. And I certainly do think that having a reliable veteran receiver that is good at getting open and good at creating separation and finding the holes in zones is always valuable, especially for a rookie quarterback. But I'm gonna play devil's advocate really quick, because the Jets just can't pay Jameson Crowder $11 million. I mean, they can, but they really shouldn't be paying Jameson Crowder $11 million to be probably their 3A. Like, the Jets are going to have, it's not even going to be a 3 or a 4, because I think him and Moore are going to be splitting reps and splitting a role, basically, to where you're going to pay $11 million for half of a role and a guy you just drafted to fill that role in the second round. That to me says why they're doing this now. Because like you guys are saying, there is no need to rush. There is no need to do anything right now. Let's wait things out. Let's see. I would agree. Joe Douglas doesn't. Joe Douglas said, well, it's OTAs. We're about to start training camp. And Robert Saleh said himself, he's not here because he's dealing with a contract. Well, he's under contract. So the only thing he could be dealing with is the Jets are asking him to take a pay cut. They've clearly been ready to do that. And I must speak to how much they believe in Elijah Moore to be, going right out and coming at it this full front this fast and this early. And it kind of makes me want to believe as well. And maybe that's the optimist in me. But I really think the Jets like Elijah Moore even more than we continually say that they did. I mean, this is a guy that every time you hear about the talk, they just gush about. And I went back and, call me a Homer fan, whatever. I went back, I watched the draft call with Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, and I called Elijah Moore the other day. Robert Saleh bangs on the table. Let's go, man. That's not a guy that you drafted to be just a half of a role player. That's a guy you got huge plans for. And I don't know if Crowder fits in those plans too right now. Would it be great to have him as a depth piece? Absolutely. If Jameson Crowder is on the team this year, I'm perfectly on board with it. By no means am I saying the Jets should do this, but everything that they themselves have shown, and if everything that the coaching staff has shown to want, is kind of pointing towards them moving on sooner rather than later. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get to training camp and it doesn't take long before Crowder's traded. And it could be, a 4th-round pick to a contender that needs an extra piece of receiver. What if the Packers call and they offer their third, which would likely be a later third, say conditional third if he plays X amount of snaps to 3, X amount to 4? I'd probably take that. To get all $11 million off the books, I have to look up the cap constraints to see if they would have any dead money. But I imagine most of the money off the books, and you get probably a solid high 4, late 3. I'll take that. That's fine with me. If Elijah Moore's that good, then I'm not against it.
I mean, there's a lot of things with timing here. If Crowder had one more year, I guarantee they would be restructuring this contract and
100%.
not asking him to take a pay cut. But since it's his last
100%.
year, the only option is either re-signing him or extending him, or asking him to take a pay cut. And with Moore, I mean, yeah, they can gush about him, and I guarantee they didn't draft him for a half role position.
No,
but maybe they're okay with that for his first year, though. And really, that's all they would need him to take that half role for, because Crowder only has 1 year left. So I can see them looking long term, like, yeah, we drafted this guy to be at the forefront of our offense, to be a stud, to be a star. And we don't need him to be that right away, though. We have the firepower. We have the guys here to sort of take that pressure off him, to not have to be that right away. And we can do that with Crowder. Of course, price means something to JD, of course, or else they wouldn't even be asking him to take a pay cut. They would just be like, all right, let's just go in with 11. They have the cap space if they want it.
No, that's the thing. That's kind of why this kind of struck me a little bit, because I really wasn't expecting it to be this early. They had the money to just pay him the 11 for this year if they wanted to. Like if like what you're saying is true, which I don't disagree with, that they vision Moore being a great piece in the future, they're fine with him growing into his role in this year, then pay Jameson Crowder the $11 million to teach him how to be a better slot receiver. And then you just let him go at the end of next year. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to me to be this upfront about asking him to take a pay cut unless you're comfortable with him going. It's kind of like the Jets are like, either take the pay cut or we'll send you off.
I wonder if it's more a precedence thing. Like, do you want to set a precedence with players like, oh, we're willing to overpay you just because we can? I feel like that might set off some dominoes down the line, maybe, that they don't want to have to deal with. So maybe they're using this as an opportunity to be like, all right, we're always going to look at everybody for the price that we see them. And we're just going to stick by that no matter what, no matter who.
I think it's more of that than anything else, because I don't think this would be an issue of an overpay if we didn't draft Elijah Moore. Because if we didn't draft Elijah Moore, then he's just your starting slot receiver for $11 million, and no one's batting an eye about it.
Yeah, true.
What do you think, Vitor?
I think that Joe Douglas likes Jameson Crowder, but I agree with Andrew here. He loves Elijah Moore. So if there's a good offer and the Jets feel like they won't get a better offer for Jameson Crowder, like if the Packers offer you a fourth rounder early in training camp, you trade Jameson Crowder, save $11 million, maybe get a cornerback, or just roll it over for next season and bet in Elijah Moore. I think, Andrew said it, like in our first draft episode, that the Jets have had Elijah Moore as a red star player. They do, you can see that they do. You can see that he's being already used in OTAs. They are making him a part of the offense. He's catching passes over the middle. He's doing jet motion stuff. So I think it's going to be really, really hard to get Elijah Moore or to keep Elijah Moore off the field. So if the price is right, if Crowder isn't willing to restructure, I could definitely see Joe Douglas moving on for him and just saying, hey, we even got Keelan Cole behind. We're going to roll with Mims, Davis, Moore, Cole, Barrios, Smith, and they're fine with saving $11 million.
Well, that seems like a really good transition into Elijah Moore. Vitor, I'm going to let you handle that. Take it away.
Yeah, Elijah Moore. I'm not gonna lie. The moment the Jets picked Moore, I wasn't like crazy about the pick because everyone around here, all three of us, really wanted J.O. Right? And we were all pretty comfortable with rolling with Mims, Crowder, Davis, Cole, but Elijah Moore was really the missing piece in this offense. The Jets didn't have a guy to excel in the Jets motion duty before getting Elijah Moore. The Jets did not have a true deep threat, a guy that can take the top of the defense before getting Elijah Moore. So by getting Elijah Moore at 34, the Jets, the address that they need, and they just got a fantastic player. Elijah Moore is a guy that the Jets utilize early in the game to start their things because everything starts in the outside zone of this offense, and the Jets are going to run outside zone of Elijah Moore. The Jets are going to keep Elijah Moore in the backside of outside zones to hold down the defense. The Jets are going to utilize Elijah Moore early if they want to take a shot. The Jets are going to get Elijah Moore early in the quick passing game if they're hoping for yards after the catch. He's a complete wide receiver that will fit in from day one. And another thing about Elijah Moore that I really, really like is that everyone always seems to praise about his character, right? He's a high character player. He makes an impact everywhere he goes. And that's what the Jets are looking for. The Jets are looking for high character players that impact the team off the field, and on the field are skill players that fit their offense, that fit what they're doing inside the Y line. So this is Elijah Moore, one of my favorite picks in the draft there after I rationalize it. And, I think Andrew, Matt, you all agree with me here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We mentioned it more than once that the Jets needed their Debo, and this is it. That's all they needed. Someone who can take the top off deep. They got him. They needed someone who could run jet motion. They got him. They needed someone who can catch a receiver screen. They got him. They need someone who can be reliable over the middle and run option routes. They got him. And whatever you want this guy to do from that slot position, he can do it, and he can do it really well. And I couldn't be more excited for this pick. And the Jets coaching staff is what's making me so excited, is the fact that they are so on board and that they are so just so dialed in with this guy. And Vitor, you nailed it. It's character every time they talk about it. It's that this dude just blew them, let alone with his play on the field and the type of fit that he is in the offense and what he can do as a player, that he blew them away with the type of person that he is. And that's a recipe for success. And when you have mentors like AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, okay, sign me up. Sign me up. I'm betting on that guy to succeed.
See, one thing you said there, reliability. We said it with Crowder. We said it with Davis. These are all reliable guys. And Moore fits that mold to a T. His contested catch rate percentage at Ole Miss last year was 73%. That's insane.
Yeah, for a slot receiver.
That's crazy. For a slot receiver.
For a 5'9", 170-pound slot receiver.
And he had a drop percentage of only 2.3. That's also extremely low. This is a highly dependable guy. And and he made a huge jump in these stats from 2019 to 2020. So you see the growth rate that you want to see, and I can't think of a better replacement if we do need to replace Crowder than with Moore, because he's able to do what Crowder can do and more.
Absolutely.
You know what's great about Moore, because these offense, you're always trying to make everything look the same. So when you're trying to make everything look the same, you need a guy that can do everything, and that's Elijah Moore. You can either run the jet motion with Moore. You can fake the jet motion with Moore and let him run a wheel route. He gives you options. You don't need to keep changing your personnel to fit players to do different things and have a player that can do everything. And that's exactly what Elijah Moore can do. That's why he's a perfect fit for these offenses.
I'm excited to see what they do when they're not even going to him, just using him as a decoy, because eventually teams are going to catch on. Hey, Moore is the guy that we need to shut down. And that's going to open up for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be fake reverse pitch plays where Elijah Moore comes across one side on a jet motion and they run a pitch the other way to Michael Carter with Mekhi Becton leading out on the kick out. And Corey Davis crack blocking, as we talked about earlier. All these pieces just fit so well in the receiving core. And for the top, four guys that we've covered so far, a lot of people talk about you want your receiving core to be like a basketball team and everyone's, you got your point guard and your shooting guard, your power forward. And yeah, that's all well and good, but you want guys that fit the roles of your offense, and the Jets have them. This is, let alone the talent that they have, it's specific talent, and that's really important.
I agree. We got the full complement, and as long as they all stay healthy, they should mesh very well together.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Well, that is going to lead us to the fifth guy, which is a recent free agent signing that I'm going to cover, and that's Keelan Cole from Jacksonville. Now, Keelan Cole is a really interesting player and a guy that I think actually might have a bigger role on this team than people maybe expect. One, because I think he's just talented and he's been hidden in Jacksonville where quarterbacks go to die. And the other part is that I think that he's another guy that fits the scheme really well. And he's already better than I think people give him credit for. I didn't know this until just recently. Did you guys know that Keelan Cole returns kicks and punts?
I didn't know that, actually, no.
And he's doing that with the Jets, too. He's practicing with Elijah Moore and Jameson Crowder, and I think Ashton Davis is punt returners. And we'll probably see some action potentially on kickoff, too. He had a 91-yard punt return last year.
Impressive. If we get rid of Barrios, hey.
Right.
And Cole right in.
Right. So special team is going to be a contributor there. On top of that, Keelan Cole made a name for himself. He was an undrafted rookie in 2017, where he was against the Patriots, and he made an absurd one-handed catch down the boundary. Sure, you guys probably remember it. And if you haven't seen it, I advise everyone to go look it up, because it's honest to God one of the best catches you'll ever see. It's that good. And he's made a couple of grabs like that throughout his career, where he is just, his body control and his concentration and his ability to catch in contest is really, really good. And it fits that mold of the receivers that we talked about earlier, where it fits the Corey Davis, it fits the Denzel Mims. Joe Douglas is a type when it comes to receivers. He is not the type of guy that's going to want the Devontae Smith that's going to be this 6'1", 175 separator route runner. That's all well and good. And I love Devontae Smith as a prospect, not to bang him at all. But that's not Joe Douglas's flavor. Joe Douglas likes guys that can win contested catches. And Keelan Cole's another one. And because of that, for the same reasons basically I talked about with Denzel Mims, I think he can form a really good relationship with Zach Wilson. And then when the Jets get into trouble and when, all else fails and they need to have what's their go-to, what's their get us out of jail free card, it's going to be throwing down the boundary. And Keelan Cole is another guy that I think will slide right into that role and potentially be the relief to a Corey Davis, a relief to a Denzel Mims, so that they don't have to play 100% of the snaps on either end at X or Z. You have another guy that I honestly think could sub in for either of them in spot duty and come in and play pretty well when needed.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned was contested catches. I'm looking at his 4 years. I'm seeing 77%, 66%, 57% in contested catches. If you throw it up to him in those 50-50 plays, the coin's weighted in his favor. So I'm all for it.
It was just a great value signing for the Jets.
100%.
You can get a guy like Keelan Cole. If you need him to produce for you, he can start. If someone gets hurt, he can rotate in and out and be just solid. And you got him for a year, $5 million. Great value signing. I think Joe Douglas saw it on the open market and said, hey, you got to sign this guy. He can return punts for us. He can return kickoffs for us. And they're going to draft a young quarterback, right? And if somebody gets hurt, he will step in and these offense won't miss a bit.
Yep.
So it's just a great value signing. One of my favorite signings in the offseason. Not a big name, but a guy that I'm pretty sure will contribute this year.
I could see him getting a second contract too. He's only 28 years old. He's only in for what, like $5 million this year, I believe. Something along that. Like
something small like that.
Yeah.
And so if he can contribute, and I don't see him having such a big role that he's gonna like blow everybody out with his numbers, where he's going to demand a huge contract after this year. So I could definitely see him just having the same role for the next 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yep. Yeah, I honest to God, I think Joe Douglas stole from Jacksonville, because this is an undrafted find that they should have kept. This is a guy that, undrafted free agent receivers, especially in situations like the Jacksonville Jaguars have had since 2017, don't come in and produce consistently. Think of how many receivers the Jags have drafted over the last couple of years, and Keelan Cole is still producing. They draft DJ Chark, they draft Laviska Shenault, they draft Dede Westbrook. They drafted a bunch of guys to try and stack the receiving core, and it was undrafted free agent rookie Keelan Cole that started 64 straight games. This is a guy I really, really think is just going to be better with a different opportunity, and could absolutely be a guy that gets a second contract at the end of this year. I think this is going to be one of those like Joe Douglas hang your hat on free agent signings, because this is shows I know what I'm doing, because I go out and I find guys like I get the combination of Corey Davis and Keelan Cole instead of just overpaying for Kenny Golladay.
I agree. And special teams to boot.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of special teams, that's going to lead us with our last little coverage. Going to be a split role of Braxton Barrios and Vincent Smith. Vitor is going to cover that as our resident slot receiver guru. Vitor, take it away.
Yeah, guys, I'm going to present the way I see Vincent Smith and Braxton Barrios. And I'm going to ask you guys, who do you think will fit better in this offense? You see Barrios is a good route runner. He's a solid football player. He can play the slot receiver position really well. He won't take your edge. He won't take the top of your defense. He won't threaten your edge constantly because he's not that fast. But he's going to work the slot. He's going to play the middle of the field well. He's going to get some catches for you. He's going to be consistent. On the other hand, we have Vincent Smith, a guy who hasn't shown absolutely nothing in the NFL, but he's fast. He's fast. He can take your jet sweeps. He scored a touchdown against the Philadelphia Eagles in 2019 on a jet sweep. He can take the top of your defense deep. He also has deep speed. And he's a guy that Joe Douglas really liked. Last year, under Gaze, the Jets were counting on Vincent Smith to be their number 4 wide receiver. But after Mims got hurt, he got hurt, everyone got hurt, and he didn't even play. So I'm making my case here for the Jets to cut Braxton Barrios if they are not willing to keep 7 receivers, and keep Vincent Smith instead. Because if something happens to Elijah Moore, if Elijah Moore goes down, the Jets do not have a guy that can threaten the edge. And I believe Vincent Smith can. He has that speed. He can be used away. I feel like he can be a backup like Kendrick Bourne was in San Francisco. When Debo got hurt, They used Bourne as a jet motion kind of guy, and a guy who could also run some deeper routes. So what do you guys think?
Yeah. I am in 110% agreement with you, Vitor. You know who else they had in San Francisco for a little bit? Marquise Goodwin. And speed. That's all he was. Speed. Didn't matter anything else, just speed. And you hit the nail on the head, because while Crowder can run some of the slot receiver routes and get open, and so can Barrios, and so can Moore, Elijah Moore is the only one of those 3 that can be an actual threat on the jet motion. And we've talked so much about how the threat is the most important part of all of it, is that if there's no threat to actually do anything with the ball in your hands, nothing matters. Vincent Smith will threaten the edge. He was able to get the edge on a reverse for 20 plus yards on Adam Gase's Jets. Imagine what he'll do with some of these reverses.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the pride of Limestone University, Vincent Smith. He's definitely got that speed that you desire, and like you said with Barrios, everything that he does, we've got people that can do the same exact thing, and even special teams, as we just mentioned with Cole. But Vincent Smith, he adds that deep threat, and he adds that speed that you just can't find anywhere else, especially in Barrios.
Yeah, he was a Gase guy. For what it's, nothing against Barrios, but he was a Gase guy.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I'm not going to hold that against him. He played his role, and he played it all right. I remember seeing a lot of people online while Barrios was getting a lot of touches, like, "Oh, we can replace Crowder with Barrios." I'm like, No. Let's not do that. Let's not play that game. He's not that good. All right, he does things well enough, but on a team that actually has NFL depth for once, I don't see it.
I agree.
Yeah, and Andrew Cullett, he was a Gay's guy. Gay's scheme was all about having his law receiver that could run routes. That's why, Jameson Crowder and Jarvis Landry were the main receivers in their respective offenses. And that's why when Braxton Berrios hit the field, he had some success. But in these offense, I think speed is the name of the game. And I see Vincent Smith as a faster, as a more, is a guy that Jets will be able to exploit more his skill set than Braxton Berrios.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think that'll lead us a really nice little closing here. I want to talk about the depth of the Jets receivers as a whole and the Julio trade. You mentioned it earlier, but I do want to cover it since it did happen today, and I think it's a good idea to talk about it. First, let's just talk about the depth of the receivers as a whole. There was some talk on Twitter recently about the Jets having one of the deepest receiving corps in the NFL. And while I don't think it's that good, it is the deepest receiving corps they have had in a very long time. And I think that is making fans more excited about it and wanting to be like, oh, it's so deep. It's one of the deepest in the league. It's probably top 10. I don't know if it's the best, but it's certainly deeper than it has been in a very, very long time.
Yeah. It's not close to Tampa Bay. I think maybe the Giants have a deeper wide receiver group than the Jets. But
I'd take Kansas City too.
Yeah, Kansas City. But, in the early 2010s, we were watching Jess Schillens, Clyde Gates, and Cole running slants with Mark Sanchez checking it out to Tommy Bohannon. And right now, we'll have Mims, we have maybe Crowder, we have Davis, we have Elijah Moore, we have Cole, and we have either Smith or Barrios. All of those guys are NFL players. Are guys that in the other teams they maybe not, they would make the roster. The Jets spent years playing players that wouldn't be in the league if not for the Jets.
Oh yeah.
And this is a complete different war right now. We played against San Francisco that year with Josh Malone as our number one receiver and Chris Hogan, who right now is playing lacrosse.
Yeah.
It's another war. And this is so important for Zach Wilson. That's what we have said a billion times here in the podcast. Joe Douglas said this offseason is about one man, and this man is Zach Wilson. And this offense, being completely honest here, not trying to sound like the greatest optimist fan ever. But if Zach Wilson clicks, this offense has tons of potential. It's a great offensive line in the left side with potential on the right side with Fant and McGovern and this scheme. They can be really good. And they have skill players who can take the top of the defense, that can work the middle of the field, that fit well with what Zach Wilson likes to do. So, it's great. It's exciting.
See, I'm going to harp on something that I feel like I've said over and over again, is that Moore and Mims, they're still projections at this point. So we're talking about depth, but at the same time, when we're talking about the guys that we can rely on, the guys that have NFL experience, that we know what we're getting, we only have 3 guys, and 2 of them are mostly slot guys, 3 and 4 options. And then you got Davis. Other than that, there's not much else. You got projection. So is it depth or is it perceived depth?
I think it's talent, and that's better than it has been in a long time.
True, but that talent still needs to show up on tape.
Agreed.
In the NFL before we can actually say it's what we need it to be.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's deeper than it has been in a long time. That wasn't a high bar to clear.
No, it was not.
And
just having 3 guys that have NFL experience is better than what we've had.
Yeah, we can compare the projected week 1 receivers for the last, including Zach Wilson, the last 3 rookie quarterbacks the Jets will have started. And you'll have Geno Smith throwing to the last year of Santonio Holmes and Stephen Hill.
Yep.
You will have Sam Darnold throwing to Robbie Anderson and I legitimate Quincy for barely because he was hurt most of that year.
Yep.
So Robbie Anderson and Chris Herndon for a few games, and you have Zach Wilson with Corey Davis, Jameson Crowder, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore. Are honestly any of the four of them outside of maybe Robbie, but at that point Robbie was still young. Any of the four of them could be the number one receiver for any of the other Jets rookie quarterbacks.
Absolutely, without question. So yes, if we're saying compared to past Jets rosters and wide receiver rooms, head and shoulders above any of them. But now if we're talking in relation to the rest of the league, I still would say we're near the bottom when it comes to depth. But at the same time, with potential to have one of the deepest.
Yeah, it depends on how you view it.
Yes.
All right, well, let's talk about the Julio trade because that happened today. I don't think anyone was expecting that to happen today, but it did. Funny enough, did anyone else notice that Julio Jones and Sam Darnold netted the same amount in a trade?
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure exactly the same amount, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we got a 6 back, and they did not, but it's basically the same thing, right? The second and the fourth.
I think they got a 6 back too.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think they did. I think it was literally the same trade where it was a player plus a 4, or a player plus a 6 for a second and a 4.
Yeah, I thought Julio would leave for first. I really thought that. But there's nothing like age and cash in this league, right? If the teams aren't willing to pay, teams aren't willing to pay a 30+ euro wide receiver like over $15 million a year. So,
does anybody know what the cap hit is for the Titans?
They take all of his contract.
They're taking all of it. So right now they have about $3 million in cap space. So I am very curious what they're going to do to free up space.
They take all of his contract. Tennessee gets 7.7 in dead money.
And I wonder if that makes some
or not Tennessee, Atlanta, excuse me.
And I wonder if that makes any of their older veterans a little bit more available for trade. Also, I'm trying to go through the roster.
Kevin Byard, anybody?
Yep.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I'm going to revoke my Jets beat the Titans prediction from our schedule episode because that was before this trade happened, and now I don't know how the Jets are going to cover.
I was thinking the same thing earlier.
The Jets are going to beat the Falcons.
The Jets are going to beat the Falcons. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, yeah, even it out.
But I think we had that one as a win for the Jets, anyways, just because we thought that if things were going to go wonky and crazy in London, that it would probably go wonky in our favor.
Yeah, the memes would indicate the Jets winning in London would be the meme thing to do. So by the power vested in memes, I think it would go.
But hey, if our pass rush does what our pass rush is built to do, then yes, adding Julio adds something. But at the same time, our guys can maybe cover for that little bit of time and cover for enough time for our defenders to reach home with Tannehill.
Yeah, it's defensive line wins that game because they're going to basically have to stop Derrick Henry by themselves because you can't load the box.
Yep. Very true. It just got a lot tougher, but I think it's still doable, but a lot tougher for sure.
Yeah. By no means am I going to call the outright win anymore. That I'm certainly optimistic on. I honestly do think realistically, I think it's a solid trade for the Titans. I mean, I'm wondering how they're going to get the contract figured out with the salary and everything, but they're in win now mode. That's evident, and they're saying we have the chance to dominate the AFC South and get ourselves a decently high playoff bid. Let's go for it. I gotta respect it. When you're in the window, take your shot.
Yeah, and we don't know for how long Ryan Tannehill will be able to play the way he's playing. I don't think he's a elite quarterback, as some people say. He's in the top 15 for sure, but he needs to keep it up. and the Titans are making everything they can for Ryan Tannehill to keep it up indeed.
Yeah, support your quarterback. It's a good recipe. Well, it was a little off topic at the end, but this has been a great show. Guys, any parting shots? I think we're going to get out of here, but if you guys got anything to add, by all means.
Mims 1K season. Let's get it.
Elijah Moore 2K all purpose.
Ooh, we're going spicy. Okay. Corey Davis, 14 touchdowns.
Sounds good.
I like it. Wow, that'd be impressive going from never having a season more than 5 touchdowns to having 14. That would be.
I think when the Jets get within, I'm glad we brought this up, actually. I'm going to end on this and we'll get out of here. It's not going to extend this any longer. When the Jets get within 30 yards, it's going to be 4 verts. And they're just going to say, adjust to the ball. Someone get open and adjust to the ball. It'll be like first down, we're inside 30, we're throwing a shot at the end zone. And I can just see Corey Davis catching 9 of those this year.
Yep.
I like it.
Well, all right, guys, this has been the Oklahoma Drill Podcast, our wide receiver position preview. Next week, we are going to be going over the offensive line and the tight ends. It's going to be a lot of fun there as well. Had some big new additions like Barrett Tucker, Dan Feeney's chugging beers at Islanders games, which is awesome to see. It's going to be a lot of fun to break down. Thank you guys for listening. We will talk soon. Bye-bye.